Hello everyone, I'm your host and thank you for listening to another episode of the Rational Standard podcast. I must start off here by apologising as it has been quite a while since our last episode. Unfortunately, life's been a bit hectic, but the show's back on the road now and we'll be back at the podcast with some great guests coming up in future episodes. For today's show, we have a gentleman who probably most people know by the name Shelley Garland, but his name is Marius Roodt, and he was the guy behind the article submitted to Huffington Post, which was in support of removing the vote from white men. Now, Huffington Post, if you haven't heard of this before, actually published this article and it went viral all over the world because they took it seriously. They thought this was like an actual person trying to be serious. Hilarity ensued, of course. A number of things happened and the editor at the time lost her job. But with the recent news that Huffington Post South Africa has now gone away, I thought it would be a good idea to catch up with Marius Roodt, who started the email all that time ago, and hear the story from his side. So please enjoy today's episode of the Rational Standard podcast with Marius Roodt. And I'm very happy to be here today at the offices of the South African Institute of Race Relations, one of my personal favorite organizations in this country. And I'm here talking to my favorite South African journalist. He has, people write great articles here and then, but he just takes the cake, I got to say, this guy. So, Marius Roodt, thank you very much for chatting with me. How are you?
All right, you, Nick.
Good, thanks. So now, look, I'm sure you've been getting a lot of calls from people asking this and that because the reason why I'm here is ultimately Huffington Post South Africa is not looking so good. It's going to close down soon. It's going to cut its ties with, I think it was News 24 and Media 24 rather. And the thing everybody I think knows Huffington Post for the best was last year in April there was a certain article published by a master's in philosophy student at, I think it was Wits. UCT, sorry, yeah, you get the two confused. Yeah. And this turned out to be completely bogus, and I thought it was absolutely hilarious, but of course it didn't end up so well for you. So basically I'm here to hear the story about the article written by Shelley Garland. But first, I don't think a lot of people may know the article, but can you introduce yourself a little bit? And let's start off with at the time, what were you doing then? What prompted you to write this? And then we can go from the story of writing it onwards.
Well, last year, when I wrote the article, I was working for another NGO.
Yeah.
And the reason I decided to write the article is there was a lot of kind of, I don't want to say rubbish, but stuff that if it fitted a certain ideological agenda, then we could publish it, even if it was patently untrue. I mean,
yeah.
One of the things was, for example, the research came out that the proportion of the JSE that was owned by whites was actually quite similar to the proportion of the JSE owned by black people. But that wasn't what people would latch onto. There was a thing, I think, going around saying that something like 97% of the JSE was owned by whites, was actually repeated by the president of the time, President Zuma then.
Yeah.
And it was just, I felt if you just attack the correct demographic, you could say almost anything you wanted in the media. So,
it does sound like that sometimes when I read their articles.
Exactly. And then I thought, what is the most ridiculous thing I can write? And then I thought, well, take the vote away from white men. And I wrote this article and I sent it to a couple of places. I sent it to Daily Vox here in South Africa, Daily Maverick.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. Guardian in the UK.
In the UK?
Yeah, and Huffington Post. And the only guys who replied to me was Huffington Post. Daily Vox didn't reply, Daily Maverick didn't reply, Guardian UK didn't reply. So it was only Huffington Post. And actually what happened was I just sent an email from the Shelley Garland account saying, hi, would you be interested in this article, blah, blah, blah. And they replied and said, that'd be a fantastic article, please send it through.
Did they say... They said it would be a fantastic...
Well, I can't remember exactly what they said, but it's like that's the kind of thing we'd be interested in publishing. So please send it through.
Yes, that is hilarious.
So I emailed it. So, but I mean, I don't think you can blame the Shelley Garland thing for Huffington Post closing. I think it probably...
of course not.
Yeah.
But it just brings back memories.
No. I think it damaged the credibility, sure.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'd say, I think since then, I thought the Huffington Post quality was actually becoming pretty good.
Well, there's a number of... for example, Martin van Staden, who's here at the Rational Standard, he's published a few articles in Huffington Post, which I'm happy to see.
Well, they published a lot of our stuff, actually, a lot of stuff from IRR.
Yeah,
so.
There's a guy actually in the Eastern Cape, Mbulelo Nguta, who's he's involved in education, and his articles are really fantastic. So they do have, they got a bit of a mix there now. But I suppose the point you were trying to prove is that, you could almost attack any sort of demographic. Now, I have to ask a little bit, was there a lot of planning that went into this? Like, did you go to great lengths, or was it just like, me? What's the random name?
like, I remember I was thinking about it. I'd actually been on holiday just before that, and then I was like, get a bit of downtime holiday, and I was thinking about it and thought, well, let me write this article, and then gave it a little bit of thought, but it wasn't like massive planning or whatever the case is. Set up a fake email account, well, a real email account, but a fake name. Wrote the article, it took me a couple of hours or whatever the case is, then sent it off, and then it was, the next thing it was published, so, but I mean, I had a couple other ideas because...
we can talk,
so I mean, the thing I was going to go... I'd just been on holiday and I'd been in Southeast Asia, so one of the places I was Cambodia.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you must know, they have a terrible history, the Cambodians.
Pol Pot's and the
exactly, and that's all... So, one of the things that happened in Cambodia is they chased everybody out the cities, you had to go live on a collectivized farm and so on. And if somebody saw you eating an apple that had fallen off a tree, you reported, you were killed, because everybody had to eat the exact amount of food, the same food, everybody had to be equal. So my next thing was thinking of writing an article saying, were the Khmer Rouge that bad?
Were the Khmer Rouge that bad?
Because they obviously that's the logical endpoint of Marxist thought, I think, where everybody has to be exactly equal, which is, and at the end of the day, huge inequality is a problem, but inequality in itself is not fundamentally a problem.
Yeah, well, I don't see inequality. You're right. You hit the nail on the head there. Inequality itself is not the problem. Poverty is the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
The analogy I always like to use is that the inequality between me and Bill Gates is enormous. In fact, it's much bigger than me and the guy who sells stuff on the side of the road. But that being said, that doesn't mean that my life is necessarily bad. The problem that we need to solve is poverty, not inequality.
It's relative deprivation.
You're right.
Looking at China is a good example. Their Gini was very low. It was 0.15, I think, in 1980. But now it's a lot higher. It's about 0.5, which is fairly high. But the number of Chinese that have left poverty is something like 800,000 people.
Oh yeah, no, it's been massive.
What's better? There's so much fewer people living in poverty, but inequality is now pretty high.
Yeah. Precisely, and I also don't think, if you look at countries and you see how poor they are, and then you also see their standard of living, and then you also take a look at their Gini coefficient, for example, I don't really think that there's a correlation necessarily between poor countries being one way or the other, or the same with rich countries. You may point out that, somebody made a point of, take, for example, Venezuela or Zimbabwe during its worst time in the mid-2000s. You could say that it had a very high degree of inequality because all the elites in the political sphere had lots of money.
Exactly. People could insulate themselves from the problems.
I have to be honest, I'm actually very, very keen to see who would publish a Were the Khmer Rouge So Bad article. I think that sounds like a great idea. I really hope the people at the Vox don't listen to this podcast, because it might be coming their way.
But that's one thing I'd also like to just emphasize is when I sent this article to a couple of places. One of the problems with when it came out was me. It was turned from an editorial error on the part of the Huffington Post to...
Why would this guy do this?
Oh, it was like this was a race thing. It was now this white guy is going for, an Indian editor and so on. I just want to...
Well, let's get to that, but let's go chronologically, because I'm interested. This was like a whole saga. So basically what happened was, from my perspective, maybe you know some more inside information, this thing came out, and to be perfectly honest, I saw it just floating through my Facebook timeline, and I thought, ugh, there's another one. I didn't even think that this is significantly bad, because I see this sort of stuff all the time from the most cancerous of news publications that they exist. But then I started seeing international pages, like meme pages and right-wing conservative sites, saying Huffington Post wants to take away the vote from white men. And I was like, holy jeepers, this thing is going global. This thing is going kind of viral. And then Varashni Pillay wrote an article sort of defending that. So at that point, that was where everything sort of went awry for her, because she defended it, if I'm not wrong, as being kind of like standard feminist theory.
Yeah.
Now, can I just ask quickly, in the article, what kind of line of reasoning did you use to say that
Well, it was that white men have been on top for 500 years, and now it's time to, and they were the reason why Trump won and why Brexit happened and why the DA won Joburg, which is off.
You did also use the DA, that's right.
Yes.
Oh, jeez, that's hilarious.
And the thing is, look, I mean, we must remember that white men have been pretty shit for quite a long time, but the thing is, the sins of our ancestors should not affect what's happening today, I don't think. Just because people who looked like us did horrible things 100 or 200 years ago. And at the end of the day, every ethnic group in the world has done something awful at some point. There's we can't get away from that.
And we should not have sin by genetic.
Exactly. And also there's no group that is the saintly group that's never done anything awful or whatever the case is. So anyway, that was the line. So saying we've been horrible, we control everything, whatever the case is. And then, so that article went through. I think it was published because it was just for the Easter weekend.
Yeah.
So I think on the Thursday it went live. And then was picked up in the US by a lot of these right wing, some a bit weird.
Lots of meme pages and stuff.
These Breitbart guys, the guys, crazy right wing. But anyway, and I think because it was the Easter weekend, it was also a bit of a problem.
Because everybody's not at work.
Exactly, and it's quiet news weekend or whatever. So then it came out. And then Varashni Pillay defended it.
Do you know, by the way, how many views it got?
I remember it had about 50,000 shares on Facebook at one stage.
Jeepers.
But I don't know how many views it got for Huffington Post or whatever. But I remember Sipho Hlongwane did tweet a graph showing every time their views on Huffington Post went up when they shared that article again. So
yeah.
There was so anyway. So then Varashni she wrote the defense of it, and then I started stressing because then I saw it got so flipping big and it had gone viral and whatever. I was like, geez, what have I done here? So and the problem is, Naspers owns Huffington Post, and the person I was seeing at the time had quite a senior position at Naspers. So
you didn't think that one through?
No, So I mean, and she was very worried about blowback. I mean, I won't say her name or position.
No, of course not.
So she was very worried about the blowback for her. So I mean, then I was stressed. And then when they figured out the Shelley Garland does not exist, then they arrived at my office on the...
Well, let me just ask about that. When this thing started to go uphill and started to get super popular, did they send an email to the Shelley Garland account going, yo, who are you? Or did they just do research?
No, they did. They did send an article. I remember Sipho Hlongwane sent an email saying, look, it's been picked up in the US. Yeah. And they're trying to hack his Twitter account or something. So just if you just watch your whatever. So I just ignored it. I was like, okay. So then they obviously figured out, no, Shelley Garland, it doesn't exist. And Varashni wrote the defense of it. And I'm not sure when the defense was retracted. Well, not retracted, they just took it off the website.
Yeah.
And then I think on the Tuesday or the Wednesday, then Peter du Toit and Ferrell Haffajee arrived at my office.
This is the part which I'm particularly interested in. So Peter du Toit and Ferrell Haffajee arrived.
And with another guy, camera guy, I couldn't remember what his name was.
They filmed it.
And
they posted it on their page. Now, the thing which I always found, it's quite disgraceful really for them, is that they made this enormous editorial blunder. They published what is legitimately a racist and sexist piece of satire as being serious. And that was what I thought was so brilliant about it. Is it was just like the ultimate... This is what your agenda is.
It was like the SoCal hoax, or what Jonathan Swift did.
What was that? I don't know.
SoCal hoax was also, I can't remember the exact details, but was a professor in the 90s, I think, Professor SoCal. He also wrote a similar page, piece of writing, and he sent it to an academic journal. And it was, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was how gravity isn't real, and you could explain it, and it's not real because of heteronormative concepts.
Oh, really?
So I can't remember, but it was something like that. And these guys bought it as well, and was published. And then there was Jonathan Swift, who in the 17 or 1800s wrote an article about how we should eat Irish babies to poor British people should eat Irish babies.
Should eat Irish babies. So we get ridiculous articles. I'm sure this experiment has been tried before, and to try and prove a point. So, all right, then now tell what happened when they came to the office, because I think this is the part which most people don't know so much about.
So what happened, so I was already a bit stressed now, I was thinking, geez, what have I done? Philip, this is getting big. I was worried about my ex-girlfriend, whatever. Then that morning, I think it was a Wednesday morning, I had a phone call on my office phone. I was like, hi, is this Marius? I was like, yes, it is. They're like, thank you, put the phone down. I was like, so obviously... Yeah. And then that afternoon, I was obviously over lunchtime because I was eating my sandwich. Yeah. The lady at reception gives me a call and says, your meeting's here. And then I knew, it's them.
How did they find out that it was you?
So I made a schoolboy error and sent it from the work computer. than my email.
Oh,
so,
I see.
So they tracked that, and they obviously figured it out. So so they just arrived there at my office, and they're like, "Oh, Marius," and I was like, "Oh, how's it?" They're going to a meeting room, and then that's when they started the.
And that was completely unexpected.
Yeah, also I handle it. What I should have said to them is like, "Cool, we can talk," because like, fair enough, you guys have caught me. Can't run away now. It's fine. But I should have said, guys.
You should have said, "Why the hell did you publish my article, you morons?"
But I should have first said, "Give me half an hour. I'll come see you guys tomorrow." Or let's set up a date to come talk first, But it was like a rabbit in the headlights. So, but I think in this whole thing, a lot of mistakes were made. I made a mistake. Firstly, I should have, when it went viral, I think I should have come out and said,
"It was
hey guys,
me."
Yeah.
You should have struck first.
Yeah,
basically.
exactly. And also there was a bit of hubris on my part. I was like, "Oh, this is amazing," and like I didn't really think the consequences through, So,
Okay.
And then Varashni Pillai also made the mistake, obviously, of defending it. So, it shouldn't have been published in the first place, but also being defended.
Well, look, at least we know where she stands on voting rights.
Yeah, exactly. And then, and I do think it was Peter the Toy and Ferry Lafferty. I think that was also, I think person in an office like that didn't put them in the greatest lights. As I say, I can't argue that they caught me and I should, not obliged, but should give me an interview. I just think the way it was done and, catch me offsides like that, I don't think...
See, this is the thing most people don't know, is most people just sort of saw that video on Huffington Post. They don't know really the context around it.
Yeah.
Now, I've heard something, so they just sort of came into your office and you were sort of apologetic a little bit in that video, and you said no, it was a bit like a rabbit in the headlights kind of vibe. Today, do you have any regrets about publishing that, or submitting that article?
I do, definitely. I feel bad that Varashni Pillai lost a job. I didn't want anybody to become unemployed over this, and also I might have damaged my former employer, their reputation, which obviously, and also, as I said, my person I was seeing last year, she was a bit stressed, and I think this whole thing put a bit of strain on our relationship, and we ended up breaking up almost a year ago now.
Okay.
So, there are those things, but I think overall, I did show there's like some of the errors in the media. I think there's certain ideological echo chambers that exist. And as long as it fits a certain narrative, doesn't matter what you say, what the stats say, it'll get published and this narrative can be pushed.
Yeah.
So I think, overall, I don't regret doing it, but I do think I could have handled better and I could have possibly been a bit more mature. But I was, as I say, Marius, that name is hubris. I was a bit,
Yeah.
So, but I think, and then also, I told the Renegade Report guys, and I wrote another thing under that Nick Shannon name, and that was also a bit, I was being a bit too clever for my own good. I think, I should have.
I remember Ramon, I think, was probably the first guy to sort of find out.
Well, I approached Ramon and said.
Okay.
Yeah, and I told a couple of people like.
Jeremy Nell or not?
I think Ramon might have told him. There's just a few guys whose views I kind of respected on Twitter. They were going on, and I was like, "Hey, calm down, guys. This isn't, this isn't real."
Explain exactly what happened.
Yeah, exactly. So overall, I think it was, as I say, I think everybody involved could have handled things better, including myself. But I think overall, I don't think I would have. I think I wouldn't have. I would still have done it. But I also think it shows there were problems in Media 24. I don't think they supported Varashni where they probably could have. And also, I think there's such an emphasis on trying to get clicks and so on. These kind of things. And I saw somebody on Twitter actually saying a lot of organisations actually go for these hate clicks. They
go for these ridiculous headlines.
Exactly, because they want people, there's a lot of rubbish, and then click on it. It's all about advertising revenue, it's all about clicks, not really actually about good journalism. And I think that's part of the problem with the internet publishing and internet publications.
Yeah, that's 100% right. And for example, me being at the Rational Standard, I haven't written an article for the Rational Standard in a while. I've sort of been doing this podcast because I can speak better than I can write. At least that's what I figured. But I've noticed sometimes how we have to sort of really craft a good title for the article so that people will be interested in clicking.
Yeah.
Sometimes I want to write an article about some sort of economic principle, and I've got the name, and I just think, who the hell scrolling through their Facebook wants to read about that? No, you have to seriously have some sort of outlandish name, and it's a bit of an unfortunate side effect. I must say one thing though, the general opinion that I've had, and I think the guys at the Rational Standard broadly agree with me here, is that the sort of new polarization in media, that is to say, we've gone from a stage of where news was kind of seriously trying to get the neutral facts of the case, and I think that's still important, but it's gone to being pretending that you don't have an agenda when you actually do, to sort of openly having an agenda one way or another. And the thing I've kind of enjoyed about that is that I can read, for example, in America, I like National Review for the conservative side, and for the left-leaning side, I actually quite like Huffington Post in the United States. They sometimes have got, like you said, it got better over time. There are some ridiculous ones on either end, like Breitbart on the right is just crazy. On the left, there's things like Jezebel and everyday feminism. I honestly don't know what sort of editorial standards those people have. It's really quite shocking. But they just go for the clicks the whole time. I think the key thing with this case, however, with your article, was the fact that Varashni Pillay wrote an article saying, most of the reasoning there was just pretty standard feminist theory.
I think that was her...
That was a significant point,
Yeah, I think she shouldn't have doubled down. She should have said, look, we found out there was actually this guy who's pretending, but jokes on him because we actually agree with everything he said.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a brilliant article, and I do think we should take the votes away. We agree broadly with what's being said here, and we agree with free speech, and we think so. This is why we leave this article up. And they could have made a note saying, found out Shelley Garland doesn't exist. It's actually this dickhead called Marius, or whatever. Or just said Shelley Garland is not a real person; it's a pseudonym.
That would have been a good move.
Exactly, and then I would have looked a bit like a chop actually.
Yeah.
You tried to catch them, but you didn't catch them. They actually called my bluff them, or whatever the case is, or tactical double trouble sort of thing, So
you're right there. I think that would have been a very good move on their part. I think I would have wanted to have done that.
And I think then I would have looked like a bit of an idiot, but Varashni maybe would have kept a job. There wouldn't have been so much egg on the face of people. Sipho Ngwane might still have his job.
Yeah.
So
no, exactly.
Let me just emphasize this was not an attack on anybody. I sent it for 3 other publications. And I do regret that people have to lose their jobs over this.
Yeah, I know.
So.
Definitely understandable. Now, the other part I want to ask is, what did you make of the sort of investigation that kind of happened to this after the fact? Now, I don't know if you were actually at those hearings. I know that, I think Ramon was there, I think Germ was there. And then there was this weird judgment that the guy made at the end. Well, I don't know if it was one of the lawyers or somebody, but I heard he said something like, in order to treat different races equally, we need to treat them unequally, or something like that. Did you ever hear about the comments that were made during the sort of press ombudsman?
I didn't follow it closely, but I do think I don't think it was hate speech in the first place, and I think it should have been just for.
It was not a threat to violence.
No, exactly. I think it should have been fine, and I think Exploder went far. I think AfriForum should actually have left it.
No, I agree. I don't think AfriForum should be sticking their nose in this sort of stuff.
Sometimes I think they do good work, but other times I'm like, guys, what are you guys doing?
No.
So, but I'll just tell you as an aside. So, just after this happened, luckily a friend of mine, she managed to get me a kind of consulting gig somewhere.
Yeah.
And at the office where I was working, this is where the press ombudsman hearing was held. In the same building.
Man.
About 100 meters from where, not even 30 meters from where I was sitting. And I remember I went out for lunch, and then I sent my friend a message, and she said, because the guy's on the press council, his officers are there, and so they often use the boardroom there. And I went out for lunch, and my friend sent me a message saying, all these guys here about the Huffington Post thing, so I'd sneak around the back because I don't want to come face
Yeah, that'll be damn awkward.
So I was like, it's like coincidence. There was in the flippin' office that I ended up working in Sanson last year. They were badly hearing there. Yeah.
Look, South Africa's a small country. It's quite crazy. It's quite spooky.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't think it was hate speech, and I don't think anything more should have happened with it. I think what should have been taken for what it is. It's obviously a spoof. It's obviously satire. They should have just been left from that point.
Not to some people.
Yeah. But that's actually been cool. Obviously this is rubbish. We're not, whatever. Let's leave it, No need to get the press ombudsman involved or the press council or any of that kind of thing.
I also thought that was a bit silly. And on the AfriForum thing, I think it's unfortunate that AfriForum sort of gets involved in stuff like this. To me, it's completely necessary. AfriForum's civil stuff, their litigation, the sort of community service they do, the academia, that sort of stuff is really fantastic, and that's why I really like the organisation. But quite frankly, I think they must take the high road on things like this, and if they don't believe in if they believe in free speech, then they need to act like it. They can't litigate according to laws which they believe are unjust.
Exactly.
I don't know, it's one little gripe I've had about the organisation. Yeah. No, I can't help but ask him, because you're currently working at one of my favourite organisations in South Africa, the Institute of Race Relations. And what exactly is your position here?
So we've started a new initiative. Funding for NGOs is getting quite tough in South Africa, especially for...
You guys taxed very badly? Or?
No, just it's to get funding can be quite difficult. Because also, the institute takes quite a hard line on certain things, and unpopular lines sometimes.
And the Guptas have left.
So, yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's part of the problem. So to get funding is getting quite difficult. So we've started a process to get people to support individuals support the institute. So if you like the work that we're doing, or that you want to support our principles and the work that we do, you can become a friend of the institute you can pay a certain amount of money a month, 50 or 80 or 100 rand. And this kind of crowdfunding model is becoming quite popular.
Very much so.
Arta follows it, AfriForum follows it. So anyway, so I'm kind of heading up that arm of the institute at the moment. So, and if any of you will give it a punt, if any of your listeners want to get involved, they can go to our website, rrr.org.za, or they can send an SMS with their name to 32823. So if anybody's interested, so if they want to get involved.
I'm sure some of our listeners will certainly be interested. Listen, Institute of Race Relations is a really fantastic organisation. The main guy I always knew from here was Frans Crinier, who's an amazing speaker. That guy just... I don't know, man, if he sits here and he studies a whole bunch of statistics and he memorizes them. I remember listening to his speech at the Cato Institute, and he was just like, this statistic, that statistic, and this is what's going on in South Africa. But it was amazing, really fascinating thinking. This place really does some fantastic work. I was particularly always loved to read Gwen and Gwenya's articles when she was still here. I'm very happy she's an MP now. I'm seriously wishing she can influence some of the crazies in the DA.
Well, she's head of policy, so hopefully we can move them a bit more to the centre or away from... They've been captured a little bit by this identity politics crowd to a degree.
It's horrible. I was just thinking to myself earlier today, the DA is a party which has got some seriously cool people. There are people like Michael Cardo, Zach Mbele, he's an MP who I interviewed.
Gavin Davis.
Yeah, I don't know him so much.
He was Shadow Minister of Education.
Oh, okay.
There's also that same group with Cardo. And,
McPherson. McPherson. Khaled Kachalia, he was recently on the Renegade Report.
Yes.
Very, very interesting. I was so impressed by his talking about economics. But then you have this sort of a bit more lefty, identity obsessed Musi Maimane, Pumzile van Dam. And I really, really hope the DA can actually get into the more sort of liberal cabal.
I think the problem with the DA is they're a bit reactive rather than proactive.
That's exactly true.
I mean, did you see now this horrible thing with Real South Africans First or something?
Oh, is that their new slogan?
Yeah, and the thing is, obviously it polls well. People are saying, cool, all these foreigners are taking our jobs, which is, whether it's true or not, it doesn't matter. If you're a Liberal Party, you say, cool, even though they're foreigners, you still can't just say, obviously it's got to be legal, etc. We don't have to get into that.
Oh.
But that's just, and also in this country, with what's happened here before, with pogroms, that's effectively what they were, against foreigners.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be encouraging this kind of thing,
No,
people have been burnt to death because of foreigners.
I think it's highly irresponsible. Look, real South Africans, is that what they're saying? I don't know.
Well, so I think I don't know.
South Africa first.
I think it's South Africans first or Real South African first, something like that.
We won't misquote you, DA.
Yeah.
But
anyway,
nonetheless, it's highly irresponsible to say anything like this because of the nature of the sort of violence that can sporadically erupt against foreigners in South Africa. I've been really pissed off, personally, with the rhetoric from Herman Mashaba.
Yeah.
Man, I had such high hopes for that guy. And then he took office, and I was like, oh man, he's just another one. I genuinely...
But I think what happened with Herman Mashaba, I think because the candidates, it was Dalil down in Cape Town, Philip in the PE,
Musimanga in PE,
Musimanga in China,
Pretoria,
and then Mashaba in Joburg. And I think they knew they were going to win Cape Town. I think they were pretty sure they were going to win PE, and they thought they had a good chance of China. Joburg, I think they just thought whatever. And they just put a guy with name recognition on. And then I think they were actually surprised that they managed to win power in the city. Yeah. I think that's personally what I think happened.
It's an interesting theory.
So because they got guys. Mashaba he didn't really have much history in the party. Where Philip, Musimanga, all guys who've worked their way up. Musimanga, he joined the DP. I think Philip's family's got history going back to the UP. I think up to I think. But his family comes from a political family, the old white liberal tradition. But Mashaba, I think he just joined it because kind of like he's a capitalist. And
it's a bit like a Donald Trump kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, he's not the same as Donald Trump.
But I mean, he is like a businessman, and he does say controversial things.
He's very wealthy,
exactly,
very successful, and I think he decided, I'm going to go for political office one day.
Exactly, but I do think part of the reason he was the candidate is because he had name recognition.
Yeah, no, exactly. Look, I mean, he was the one guy out of that field. I knew a bit about Athol Trollop and obviously Dillo in Cape Town. I didn't know who Solly Msimanga was beforehand. So he did have that name recognition, and he's got a book out. He's really successful. I'm just, continuously concerned about his closeness with the EFF caucus and the Johannesburg City Council.
Yep. But that's also the thing. I mean, when the EFF and DA entered this coalition, there's not a coalition. One of the things was to say they'll support Msimanga and Tshwane, but in Mashaba they're a bit iffy about. That was when in 2016 when all the negotiations were going on.
Oh yeah.
And then they ended up obviously supporting Mashaba for now. But I mean, it shows you now. I mean, apparently they call Mashaba the EFF man now.
They're saying. I mean, no, I don't want to say hearsay now, but I hear things like that these now are getting very close to the EFF. Look, I don't like to judge a party as a party. I always like to judge them as individuals. Unfortunately, in South Africa, our politics are extraordinarily partisan, which is something I really hate. I much prefer the American version when you've got Republicans criticising Donald Trump. Find an ANC guy who'll criticise him, Cyril Ramaphosa right now. I think that'll be quite rare, and if that happens, they'll lose their seats.
Oh, but look, I mean, when we had Zuma, nobody criticised the guy.
Yeah, nobody did, and then towards the end, SSCP was like, no, we've had enough.
Yeah. But even, I mean, guys like Trevor Manuel, who's quite respected and so on, but I mean, he kept chup still.
Mbeki.
Exactly. Well, they all kept quiet. I mean, for people in the ANC is more important than the country by far.
Yeah.
It's more important for Cyril Ramaphosa puts the ANC before he puts South Africa.
Yeah. It's funny, it was mentioned to me the other day when I was talking to Davi Roodt. He said it's important to remember that the ANC's got Leninist backgrounds. And the whole thing, Lenin believed that you had to have this vanguard party to lead the revolution. So I think the ANC deep down inside truly believes that they're the only real legitimate governors of South Africa. And of course we do have elections, but I'm very concerned for one day when ANC loses their majority. I think that could be a serious problem.
I agree with you, but I just have to say, I do think the ANC's been pretty good where they have lost power in the Western Cape and the big cities and Gauteng. So from that point of view, that's been good, but I mean, losing Joburg or Tshwane is different from losing South Africa.
Yeah, so I think if they lose a majority of seats in Parliament, there could be some serious problems.
Things could get, I mean, who knows, also the rigging and all kinds of things. So you don't know.
They could resort to desperate measures.
Exactly.
Speaking of which, we're about to see the Zimbabwean election on Monday. I'm very, very interested in that. Apparently, there's still a few problems with voting rolls and stuff like that. But, I'm living in Grahamstown now. A lot of Zimbabweans studying at Rhodes University, and it's actually really lovely to see the first election in Zimbabwe without Robert Mugabe.
Yeah.
So, really lovely. Anyway, we've gone off topic a little bit, but thank you very much for sharing this story. I just want to reiterate how I was such a big fan of this article. I was like, man, this is brilliant. I've never seen a publication get taken down like that. And, I think it just serves as a message that you need to think outside of the box sometimes if you're editor. You need to be aware of your own biases and don't just publish anything because it kind of suits your own narrative. I think we've been pretty good with that at my own site. But it just shows you Huffington Post really, well-established, well-funded thing. Yeah.
Well, I think with them was probably a bit of a perfect storm. I mean, they're obviously under pressure for content. They come out, this thing will get us so many hits.
They were quite new as well.
Yeah, exactly. They'd only been around for a couple of months then, so... Yeah. And then comes with your ideological bias, with the need to get hits, then this thing comes in, you don't do your checking properly. And also, part of their model was to get the bloggers to write for free for them. So they don't check, they don't approach something, this guy's written a couple of things, this guy's pretty good. They get some random person to come send them an email, this is great, write this bigoted piece of nonsense, cool, this is amazing, this will get us so many hits, let's do it,
Yeah.
So, but even though Huffington Post started getting, was a lot better towards the end, they had some really good articles. There was really a good one actually 2 or 3 weeks ago where it was a linguist writing about why when you speak English, it was called the Zulu language Zulu, not isiZulu. And explain why.
I'm very interested in languages as well.
So that was very interesting. But then they also had the whole thing, that clip of Winnie Mandela calling Anton Harbour a Stratcom agent.
I haven't heard about that.
Yeah, so there was a clip of Winnie Mandela from a couple of years ago talking how Anton Harbour and another journalist, I don't know, I can't remember her name now, were Stratcom agents, and they didn't go to Anton Harbour. I mean, Anton Harbour was anything but a Stratcom agent in the 80s.
Yeah.
They didn't give him a chance to reply and say, hey, Anton, I'm going to put this clip, and they just went and played it. I mean, That's what Varashni did at the Mail and Garden with the whole Musi Maimani story that came out. Where she claimed he was getting presidential lessons from de Klerk. And she hadn't approached de Klerk or Maimani for comments, it was a front page story. I mean, should you get both sides comments?
You do need to approach, that's very standard approach.
Exactly, and they didn't do that, and it was a hatchet job on the DA, which is fine. Obviously, Mail and Garden on DA supporters, that's fine. But you still got to follow you've got to be fair to both sides when you...
Yeah, see, I get very pissed off because the DA is just... The ANC, the way that the media treats the ANC, let's say the EFF as well, is like the definition, I think, of the soft bigotry of low expectations.
Yeah.
The standard the DA is held to is freaking high. They've got...
Which is good.
Which is good. Yeah. It is good. And I believe criticising your own party is important. I have often wanted to ask, whenever I get the chance to talk to a DA MP, I always ask, would you vote against your own party? And I won't say the answers, but they're not encouraging.
Yeah.
But only because, one day, what if a bill comes to Parliament and the chief whip of the DA is like, right, everyone, you have to vote yes on this.
But I mean, I think in parliamentary democracy, that's got to... I mean, it happens in the UK. You get like things like 3-line whips and so on, where people have to... You have to support the party line, Like on certain things, you'll get given a free choice. For example, say a vote on prostitution or abortion or something. But in general, I don't think there's nothing wrong with saying to an MP, you're elected on a DA ticket, therefore you have to vote for this. So if you don't like it...
I 100% understand that. But that's why I like first past the post system better than proportional representation.
Or I like a mixed system.
I would agree. Like Canada and New Zealand, I like the system.
Canada uses first past the post.
Yes, but don't they also have a certain mixed member proportional?
They might have it in the Senate, but in the lower house, it's definitely first past the post.
Yeah, that is right.
Yeah.
So,
but New Zealand, you're right. It's a mixed.
New Zealand's got a mix.
The Sutsu does the same.
Really?
Germany as well.
Yeah, Germany.
And it's a system we have at city level.
Yeah, well, city level got the ward councillors.
But then you also, so for example, if you have, if there are 100 seats in, say Joburg has 100 seats.
In the council.
50 will be ward seats.
Yeah.
The other 50 will be proportional representation. So then they'll figure out, cool, you won 30 ward seats, but overall you got 6% of the vote, so you'll get another 30 of the 100 of the 50 PR seats to give you 60% of the seats in council. You got 60% of the vote. So look, next time we have a local election, you vote for ward councillor and you vote for party.
I quite like that because it just sort of evens the balance in terms of proportional votes.
Exactly, and you still have somebody.
Yeah.
And then you can get guys who can rebel. So look, I mean, I got 80% of the vote in my ward
district.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so
ward.
People like me, So I think you should. So I'm going to be. They're not beholden to the party.
No, exactly.
So that's part of the problem with our current system, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I hate the partisanship of South Africa. I think it's the bane of our politics. It creates like this cult-like feeling within parties. It's the thing that drives me nuts is these DASO students who post like Kula DASO and then that like fist emoji. Whenever I see that, like, you guys are not at all cult-like. You guys are totally individual-minded free thinkers. Kula DASO.
But maybe it's an issue. I mean, South Africa's always been a big man. We've had even during the Nats, even Jan Spatz, man, he was like, the whole big man politics sort of thing.
It was before my time. So
mine too.
Yeah, of course. I mean, otherwise you would be about 100 years old if you voted in that election. Anyway, listen, man, thank you very much for talking to me. It's been an interesting chat, and I think it's just very interesting for the listeners to hear what went on behind the scenes, because everybody knows this article. It's famous overseas as well, and it's quite legendary. So we'll see if something else like this happens in the future. Cool, man. Thanks very much for the chat. Hey, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Nick.
Cool. Have a good day. And just to end off, as usual, subscribe to us on iTunes. Go to www.rationalstandard.com to check out our articles, and you can also sign up for the newsletter via email, where you'll get our articles every month. You can follow me on Twitter @NickBabaya. You can follow Rational Standard on Twitter @RationalStand. And are you on Twitter or Facebook? Is there any way that you want to be reached, or if you don't?
I have people. I mean, I don't tweet much. I'm just mainly tweet about cricket or retweet guys.
That's perfect. I love cricket.
If somebody wants to follow me, it's just @Marius Roodt.
Cool.
On Twitter, yeah.
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks for listening to another episode of the Rational Standard Podcast. Stay tuned for next time.